Okay, this is going to be a video about circles. All right, now a lot of people have said that you can't have a perfect circle, and there's various arguments for why. Now let's get into this first of all. Why can't you have a perfect circle? Let's address that. The argument from some people is you can't have a perfect circle because pi cannot be factored down to the last digit, and therefore you would only ever have a circle that approximated a perfect circle. That is not true. We can factor pi perfectly well. Pi is pi. Pi is equal to pi. Pi is not, it's pi. Just we can't represent it in our decimal number system, but it is pi. If you wrote a number system that you wanted to accommodate pi as a whole number, then you could. I mean, that would be a really weird number system. But if you did it, if you said 1 is equal to pi instead, and then like I guess you would write it probably as a binary system, so it'd be like 1 equals pi and 10 equals 2 pi and 11 equals 3 pi, something like that. Then you've represented pi perfectly, and I have no idea what the math of that system would look like. I don't even want to think it. But the point is, it has nothing to do with pi. Pi is just the ratio of the circumference and the diameter. It is not some magic thing that has no end and never can be calculated. It's pi. Pi is pi. We just can't do it with our decimal. The way humans do math, pi is an irrational number. That doesn't mean that it has to be that way forever. You just would have to create a new kind of math. And you don't. I'm not saying you have to create a new kind of math in order to make a perfect circle. You can make a perfect circle. Pi is not your obstacle. Second thing, people have said, and this part is true. All right, so if I created a circle and I kept checking it more and more precisely, it's like if you said make a stick that's exactly 2 inches long, cut a stick so it's exactly 2 inches long. The question an engineer would ask would be, what are the tolerances, right? 2 inches plus or minus an inch. And I mean, some engineering projects might actually literally have tolerances at that level. That would be crazy, 2 inches plus or minus an inch, but it's conceivable. But generally, like, a tenth of an inch, within a hundredth of an inch, within a billionth of an inch, within a 100 billionth of an inch. So when you make a circle, you got to go, well, to what tolerance have you made a perfect circle? And at some point, we reach a point where you go, okay, well, the circle is only a perfect circle within the tolerances that you have set for it. Okay, so that is true. Okay, now we're going to come back to that, so keep that in mind. The final thing people have said is you can't have a perfect circle. For instance, one very clever young man pointed out that a physical, real-world circle, an object that exists in the world, would have to be made up of particles. Particles are always in motion. Therefore, if they're always in motion, the circle cannot be perfect because it is always in motion. You would have to freeze it. Well, first of all, I would say, yeah, sure, because we can't actually get to absolute zero and observe it at least. So therefore, I'll agree with you. But all right, so let's address the first issue I've already addressed. It has nothing to do with pi. The third issue I'm going to address now, and it's important. Then I'm going to come back and address the second issue. The third issue, particles. Okay, you know what? No, I'm going to do the second issue, and then I'm going to come back to the third issue and all the other arguments that were similar to that in nature, that involved subatomic particles, that involved looking at things at that level. All right, so let's look at the second one. Here's why I'm saying a perfect circle can exist. You say that a perfect circle can only exist mathematically because it would have to be within whatever tolerances. And if we just look far enough, we would eventually find the flaw in that circle. Now, I say that you find the flaw in my circle, I fix the flaw. We keep going. I think you are going to run out of technology to check for the perfection of my circle before I run out of technology to correct the imperfections that you find in my circle. And at the end of the day, or month or year or decade or whatever, as our technology becomes increasingly converted to making perfect circles and finding flaws in perfect circles, and our entire world economy grinds to a halt as we work on this massive project. At the end of the day, I'm going to have a perfect circle which you cannot find a flaw in. And you are then going to say, but I know there is a flaw, I just can't find it yet. And I'll agree that intuitively I know that there is a flaw. Maybe. The point is that psychologically, could a perfect circle exist? I can't prove it's a perfect circle, except the circle exists, and every test you conduct on it says it is a perfect circle. So it could be a perfect circle. It could be that no amount of investigating, no amount of energy spent on research could reveal the flaws in this circle. But we don't know that because we don't have an infinite amount of energy to spend on it. Therefore, I say it is a perfect circle, and it is your job to prove that it is an imperfect circle, and you cannot do that. Therefore, it is not the perfect circle which only exists mathematically. It is the absence of perfect circles only exists philosophically. That's what I say. Now, as far as people who say the thing about like particles and things like that, that gets down to basic reality. When you're doing anything in the real world, when you're having a philosophical discussion, you absolutely can use reality in any way you want to further your point. And then people can take that point or discard it as they wish. However, when you're doing anything practically, you have to pick and choose the parts of reality that you want to use. And you have to be very careful, of course. You don't discard a part of reality. If you discard parts of reality that are actually critical to you accomplishing goals, then you end up with bad religion. And that happens a lot. And that's why we have so many problems with religion, is because people tend to discard the parts of reality that are inconvenient to them rather than that. But in terms of this, like, I know what a circle is. I know it's a circle, okay? I draw a circle on a piece of paper. I know that's a circle. You say it's not a perfect circle. I say, okay, it's not. But then when you start saying, well, the particles that make up the circle are vibrating, that's a part of reality that isn't really contributing to the conversation. Therefore, it's a part of reality I can discard, because we know what I'm talking about when I say I'm talking about a circle. I'm not talking about a perfect circle in the sense that it is made up of an infinite number of points, and each point therefore is infinitely small. And since we can't have an infinitely small point, I'm not talking about powers of infinity. I'm not talking about particle physics. I'm talking about a circle, and we all know what I'm talking about in that regard. And therefore, we only use the parts of reality that contribute to the conversation that we're having. Does that make sense? I mean, that's a realistic way. Like if you wanted to have a discussion about the particle physics that go into making a circle, we can have that discussion, but that's not really what this is about. This is about a perfect circle in the sense of, there's a circle, and is it perfect or not? Not, is there motion in the universe? Because then I have to start looking into, well, could we achieve absolute zero? If we can, could a perfect circle exist that couldn't be observed? And it becomes a very different argument. So we're not really going to have that discussion, because it's not about that. It's about the other thing that I was saying about the circle can't be perfect. It can only be perfect within the tolerances that you set for it. Okay. You know what? This is a pretty long video just to talk about circles, but I think the philosophy of casting out the parts that you don't need for a discussion is pretty cool. And maybe somebody wants to invite me on a podcast or something, and I can talk about that. But right now, I don't know. This is about the longest video I've ever posted, so I feel like I should. I've got like a few seconds left if I want to put it on TikTok. So, hey, TikTokers, let's talk about philosophy.